The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering in-person and online graduate programs in public policy and data analytics. Admissions now open at umass.edu/SPP. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering bundled lesson packages including rental equipment and lift tickets. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, live music Tuesday with Mtali Banda, who's performing a program steeped in black history next weekend at De La Luz in Holyoke, and hearing from Damany Gordon from Genuine Culture LLC about bringing this concert to Western Mass.
But first, we get into the pages of an American story written in twain with two faces of one corporate giant, alike in virtue and multicast. It is the subject of the latest book by acclaimed author, director, actor, and producer John Sayles.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Every new book of yours we read gets more and more dense.
Although this one not as long as some of the other ones. Definitely.
The material just gets more and more concentrated. It's like being in an advanced course.
Yeah.
Well, I have to warn you, I've already written another one.
When's that one coming out?
Bring it on.
Not next winter. I hope next spring.
John Sayles is an independent film director, screenwriter, actor, and novelist. He has twice been nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Passion Fish in 1992 and Lone Star in 1996.
Which you have an opportunity to see locally with John Sayles, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He's written and directed and or script doctored some of our favorite films. 8 Men Out, Brother from Another Planet, Mate One, Alligator. He also directed 3 Bruce Springsteen videos, all off the Born in the USA album. John and his partner in life and filmmaking and crime, Maggie Ramsey, are both graduates from Williams College right here in the 413.
I have an uncle in one of those movies.
Yes, you do.
Apart from his stellar film work, John Sayles has written 9 novels, including Jamie McGillivray, The Renegade's Journey, which was a New York Times Book Review editor's choice, and for which we had John on the show, To Save the Man, which sheds light on an American tragedy, the Wounded Knee Massacre, and the cultural genocide experienced by the Native American children at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, for which we also had him on last year.
And we have him on for another heavy topic
he writes
with the new book
every year, and it makes me feel like I'm not doing enough with my life at all.
Yeah. We welcome John Sayles back to the show with his third novel in as many years, Crucible. Book list calls Crucible an ambitious, polyphonic tale that captures America's industrial history. Sayles' historical tale is a fierce, symphonic reckoning with the cost of American progress.
Publishers Weekly said Sayles offers a propulsive view into the era's rapacious capitalism and rapid social changes. This textured tale will resonate with readers concerned with workers' rights and corporate greed.
Wow.
John Sayles will be at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley tonight, Tuesday, February 17th, 7 p.m., and tomorrow across the mountains, Wednesday, February 18th, in North Adams at the North Adams Public Library at 6 p.m., where he'll be in conversation with Rich Remsburg. And down the street from your alma mater at Williams College, John Sayles, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much.
Nice to be talking with you guys again.
As I mentioned, these books keep getting more and more dense, and it's like being in some sort of seminar every time that we come to one of your books.
And this book takes place in Henry Ford's America, specifically in Detroit, in the Detroit area, but also in Brazil. And we'll get to the Brazil part in a minute. But I think a lot of people, when they see the Ford truck commercials on TV during Super Bowl games, they think, rah, rah, America, it's so great.
Those people have never driven Fords.
Well, yeah. I mean, the cars themselves can be debatable of how good they are. Sometimes the cartoon character Calvin is relieving himself on their logo, depending on your bent.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, but Henry Ford has a reputation as A, like an American hero inventor. B, some people will be like, oh, I heard he was racist, but maybe like my grandma was racist, where she didn't know any better. But what I learned, first off, in Rachel Maddow's book, Prequel, but that really comes to light in a novelized form in this, he was a Class 1 anti-Semite racist. He was an idol to none other than Adolf Hitler. Hitler had Henry Ford's picture up in his office. So talk about Henry Ford, and even though he's sort of a ghost figure that doesn't really appear too much in the novel, why he's at the center of this book, Crucible.
I think if your grandmother was a racist, it didn't affect many people.
Yeah.
If you're a racist and you run the Ford Motor Company and you have a house newspaper and you serialize the protocols of the elders of Zion, this thing that was made up by a Russian con man a couple of years earlier, and get it out nationwide, not just in Detroit, it has a lot more effect. He was a racist mostly out of ignorance. This is a guy who grew up on a farm. He hadn't met any Jews when he was growing up. He was not alone. Father Coughlin, who was a Catholic priest who was on the radio nationally out of Detroit, was singing the same song. Very anti-FDR as well. He could sit down with people. The guy who built most of his factories and buildings was Jewish, but he succumbed to this thing that was widespread at the time, that, bankers only push money around, they don't do any work, all bankers are Jewish and they're ruining the world. When he was brought the Protocols of the Elders of Zion by his press agent, Ernest Leibold, he kind of, this explains everything, and decided everybody should know about it.
And Hitler took up that mantle when Hitler was interviewed in Munich in 1931 by a Detroit newspaper, actually, and she saw the picture of Henry Ford in there. He said, "I regard Henry Ford as my inspiration." And when she asked him why he was so anti-Semitic, he said, "Somebody has to be blamed for our troubles."
Yes. Well, you never know with race. Sometimes racists are racist because they think it will get them votes or support from the people. And let's just say, 1927, when I start this book, Catholics aren't too popular either in most of the United States, and Italians. And it was a long list back then. Dearborn, where the River Rouge factory that most of the Fords were coming out of it was a restricted neighborhood. It was covenanted. There was a long, long list, including Jews and Black people, who could not rent there, much less buy there. And they had to be careful if they wandered off the trolley and it wasn't into the parking lot at the River Rouge factory. They could be picked up pretty quickly by the Dearborn police.
We're speaking with author and filmmaker John Sayles. His new book is Crucible. He'll be at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley tonight, February 17th, and at the North Adams Public Library tomorrow.
The nature of that blame takes a lot of space of the early part of that book. And it's almost like that Spider-Man meme of everyone pointing fingers at literally everyone else. But there's so many layers. This gets really hard to try and and simplify because there's so many pieces to this puzzle that are addressed, creating the title of this book, Crucible, something that just ends up bubbling over in both locations. But talk a little bit about the mob and the idea of enforcement, because it takes many faces.
And you have a real historical figure that's a main character of this book in Harry Bennett, right?
Yeah, Harry Bennett was a guy that Henry Ford had met when he saw him in a fist fight with two sailors on the street and thought he was a feisty little guy and gave him a job. And the guy just kept moving up. He was very smart. He was very charming. He always wore bow ties because he said, if you're in a fist fight and you've got a long tie on, somebody could choke you with it. And he got into a lot of fist fights, including with people who worked at Ford. And it was kind of this strange thing. Part of the reason I wrote the book is Detroit was on the front lines for all these things that have affected America greatly. Prohibition was one of them. Detroit is on the river, and on the other side of it is Canada. During Prohibition, that was where all the good liquor, the manufactured stuff that didn't come out of bathtubs, came through that city. And then it went on to Chicago and other cities. That was very good for bootleggers. Henry Ford, unwittingly, he may have known it was going to happen, but he wasn't profiting from it. He didn't drink. He didn't think other people should. He pushed Michigan into being a dry state a year before the rest of the country went dry with the amendment. So there was already this kind of connection between them. And then Harry Bennett, who always had Henry Ford's ear, said, you've been complaining about having to pay these drivers who are driving these trucks with Ford automobiles on them around the country, are making the same as the guys that work on the assembly line. I bet he could do something about that. And Harry Bennett had a lot of connections with the mob. And then for a long time, Ford vehicles, the non-Teamsters who drove them places, were mostly mob guys because they could control the unions by killing anybody who tried to, organize a union of truckers or anybody else.
And unions play another big part of this book, Crucible, John Sayles, where it's the formation of the union in the Ford Motor Company and the crucible that's created figuratively and literally to make this happen. I love the last sentence in the acknowledgments. It sums it up so perfectly. As the novel displays, enormous social and economic forces rush together in that city, meaning Detroit, making it more a high-pressure crucible than a genteel American melting pot. Talk about why you historically in great movies like Matewan, but in this new book, Crucible, why the importance of unions play such a prominent role in your work.
Well, there comes a point when workers realize, yes, it's wonderful that I have a job, but the other side has gotten out of hand, and I have to have some way of doing something about it. At one point, Henry Ford was America's favorite tycoon. People loved him. He paid his automobile workers twice what everybody else was in the auto industry at one point because he wanted them to be able to afford to buy a Model T. He paid African American workers the same as he paid white workers, and those weren't all janitor jobs or anything like that. So there were some things that were attractive about working for Ford. People came all the way from the Deep South to work for Henry Ford. But then there was the other part of it, which was, I'm going to run this thing kind of like the company store system that you found in Matewan in the coal industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to control every second of when my guys are under my roof. And Henry Ford's service department, if you went to the bathroom, there were no doors on the stalls. And there was a service department thug, often an ex-con, with his arms crossed watching you until you went back to the line. And
it's like working at Amazon now.
Exactly, because they were so afraid of workers talking to each other. Anytime there was any kind of a gathering that might have some organizing, there were Ford people taking down the license plates of the cars parked in the parking lot. It happened in every industry all around the country. And of course, the arc of the automobile industry is unlike the coal industry. The stuff wasn't under the ground there in Dearborn. You didn't need to be there to make automobiles. And when they realized that, starting in the late 50s, early 60s, things started moving, first down to the south and then overseas. And the union kind of lost their grip. I grew up in the 50s. Detroit was where the automobiles were made. I never saw a foreign car unless it was in a movie or a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
It was a place that, in my mind, an assembly line worker could own his own car and maybe even own his own home. So there's kind of a golden age for workers. And then, very gradually, Detroit, the jobs went first, and then the people started going, and there was white flight from the center of the city. And by the time it was handed over to the, African American mayors, there was nothing left to steal. They had nothing. They couldn't run their fire department or police department with the money that they had left.
We're speaking with John Sayles about his new book, Crucible. He'll be at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley tonight and at the North Adams Public Library tomorrow.
I feel like now is the time when we need to get into Fordlandia.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I had never heard about before, actually.
I had heard about it, but the way that this is broken down is like fascinating. Tell us about
Fordlandia. There's a wonderful nonfiction book by Greg Grandin called Fordlandia. And about 4 years ago, I was asked by some producers who'd taken an option on it to go around and pitch it as a TV series. And we never got any traction on it, but I already had this idea of writing something about Detroit in my head. And I realized, this is the last link. This is the imperialist era of Henry Ford's reign over everything. He decided, look, I own coal mines. I own, places where I can get iron ore. It gets delivered to my factory, and within 48 hours, an automobile comes out the other end. What I don't own is rubber. So in his wisdom, he decided, well, I'll just make a model village like I did up in Michigan when I needed wood and had a bunch of guys running sawmills. Unfortunately, when he bought a section of the Amazon in Brazil, the size of the state of Connecticut, who he sent down to run it were a bunch of guys who ran sawmills up in the upper peninsula of Michigan. They didn't know how to grow rubber, and they didn't speak Portuguese. And things did not go well. And partly because Henry Ford didn't believe in experts. if you read the saga of Fordlandia, it's kind of like our foreign policy for the last 30 years or so, going into an area where we just don't have enough information to know what we should be doing there.
Shoot first and ask questions later. And you see at the end of the book, spoiler alert, the epic failure of Fordlandia.
Again, it starts with them clear cutting a forest of the thing that they need to replant it. And somebody who has been not necessarily part of the indigenous community, but definitely is from Brazil, who has been harvesting rubber, going, these trees already give rubber. You're going to plant them. It takes 7 years.
Yeah.
They also had to, the sawmill guys knew how to cut down trees. But when they first came there, they realized, Detroit, you're going to have to invent a new kind of steel for our saw blades, because this hardwood is just breaking saw blades like left and right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having to just cut these things down and burn them in piles. Very valuable wood that they ended up just burning with a lot of gasoline and a lot of stuff polluting the air because they couldn't cut it into boards. They didn't have the tools to do that yet.
More coming up with Renaissance man John Sayles and his new book, Crucible, as we talk about the movement of time in his book and the Western Mass local representation you'll encounter amongst his many characters.
After which, we'll dig into the sounds of Black history as interpreted by saxophonist Mtali Banda as he readies for a concert on that theme at De La Luz in Holyoke. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Dean's Beans Organic Coffee, a locally based, worker-owned company committed to social and environmental responsibility, roasting fair trade, organic, shade-grown coffee since 1993. deansbeans.com.
We're speaking with author, filmmaker John Sayles about his new book, Crucible, which has to do with Henry Ford in the post-Henry Ford era, in the Edsel Ford era, and right before the Henry Ford II era. It reminds me a little bit about that Ford versus Ferrari movie. It seems like that's the continuation of this story in film form, so it's interesting to get this glimpse ahead of time. And there are a bunch of real things, including Fordlandia, that appear in this historical fiction. Are the ads that we see throughout the book all actual ads that the Ford Motor Company ran?
Yeah, I don't have the exact graphics, but those are the ads. It's the way I keep time in the book.
Yeah,
is,
it's really an effective
because about 15
device.
years, 15 years is covered, and I want people to know, oh, it's 1933 because here's the new 1933 Ford. Some of them were pretty good cars.
Yeah, there's jokes about King Henry, the V8, when the V8 engine is unveiled and things of that nature. But there are other historical figures of note that pop up in this book, sometimes explicitly, and sometimes you have to read between the lines to really figure out who it is you're talking about. Paul Robeson is in this book. Walt Disney's in the book. Joe Louis is in the book, and
FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt.
But Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera have a little bit more of a spotlight on them as historical figures. Talk about their actual relationship with the Ford Motor Company and why you included them in this historical novel about that era.
Yeah, Edsel Ford, Henry's only son, was a guy who, it sounds like you'd actually like him. He was more artistic. He was good at designing cars.
He feels a little bit like Henry's moral compass.
Yeah, but in the empire of Henry Ford feels like the Fredo to his Michael Corleone. You know what I mean?
And Henry thought he wasn't tough enough, so he treated him like hell because that really develops character if your father treats you like hell, as we see with our present Supreme Commander.
Yes.
Edsel had heard of this guy, Diego Rivera, and he thought, wouldn't it be cool if he came and did a mural about Detroit industry in the Institute of Arts? And the guy who was running the Institute of Arts was a friend of his and said, oh, yeah, I bet we could get him. And he comes there and he looks, and he's supposed to do one wall, but it's this, kind of place where all the ladies have their tea, and there's all this Greco-Roman stuff and busts of Roman senators everywhere. And he says, I can't compete with that. I'll tell you what, I'll do all 4 walls and only charge you for one.
Mhm.
And Edsel said, I think we can handle that. Well, we'll pay you for all 4 wars. So he went to the River Rouge factory for a couple weeks. And all the guys on the line thought, oh my God, there's a guy drawing things on a pad. He's probably an efficiency expert. We're either going to lose our jobs or they're going to speed up the line. And then they realized, no, he's too fat. Henry Ford doesn't like fat people on the line. So he can't be that. And then it's revealed he's going to do this mural. So he was there for a couple months, living in a hotel across the street from the Art Institute. And there's a great thing that I found in, I think it might have been the Detroit Free Press, which is a picture of Frida Kahlo. She's in the hotel room. She's sitting at a little easel with a little brush in her hand. And the subtitle says, and Mrs. Rivera dabbles in artistic endeavors as well.
I've seen this photo. That is so unbelievable.
Dabbles.
Yeah. And who wins the day now, Diego Rivera?
Well, what's interesting is her first great painting is called Henry Ford Hospital, and it's when she lost a baby.
Right.
And it's her levitating above a cot in the hospital that says Henry Ford Hospital on the side of it. And there's these things coming out of her body. And when Diego Rivera saw that, he said, oh my God, you're doing something nobody else is doing. Keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning of him really encouraging her to just go in her own direction.
Finally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I kind of want to get back to the Fordlandia thing just because, like, there's
a lot.
The first part of the book is kind of like dividing the characters between who in Detroit is going to Brazil to try and make it work.
Yeah.
And who stays to be a part of the boiling pot that Detroit is becoming.
Mm-hmm.
The ongoing translation from Detroit to Fordlandia that is misconstrued and misunderstood is just really fascinating to me.
Well, it starts with the time zone. They decided, well, they're working for Ford. They should be on Detroit time. So the Brazilians, many who had never seen a watch or a clock, because they were fishermen and, they went by the sun. All of a sudden, they're punching in like somebody in Dearborn is punching into the factory. And they're on Detroit time, which is like a couple time zones away from where they actually were in the world. The book goes from 1927 to 1943. Well, that includes Prohibition, the stock market crash, the Depression, all the way up to America getting into World War II. So I always say to actors, don't play the end of the scene when you're starting it. None of my characters know how this is going to end.
Yeah.
They haven't seen the movie. So, they're thinking, well, maybe this union thing is just a fad.
Mm-hmm.
I better not stick my neck out. Or maybe communism is the answer. If we just stay with it, in 3 years, we're going to have a workers' paradise. Some of the stuff happening in Detroit is people just in the throes, lost in the flood of this stuff. Whereas in Brazil, it's a little bit more like, as I said, our foreign policy, where it's the Brazilians scratching their heads and saying, what do they want us to do?
We're speaking with John Sayles, the author and filmmaker. The new book is called Crucible. Now, we have a mutual friend in one Bob Kraskowski. You were a producer on his wonderful movie, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot, and will hopefully be a producer in the upcoming film Grendel whenever that finally gets the official green light. I've spent time with you, John, at the Polish clubs of Turner's Falls, one of which is called St. Kaz and one of which is called St. Stans. You have two Polish characters in this book. The main one is named Kaz and another one is named Stanislaus. Again, they're very common Polish names. Did the Polish clubs of Turner's Falls influence the character names in your book?
Yeah, and I grew up with a lot of Polish kids. We used to go. Two of my friends were Italian kids whose father was a caterer, and whenever they would cater something at the PNA, the Polish National Association, they would say, "Hey, we got to go," because when they did the cleanup, we could go and take all the wine glasses and pour them together, and basically get drunk.
It's funny how times
that's equity, everybody.
Yeah, it is funny how times have rarely changed. As my children are known quantities at both of those Polish clubs in the town where they live as well.
We've already talked about it a little bit, but like there is this ongoing list of dualities that happen in this book between the owner class and the production class, like between the various ethnicities, both in Brazil and in Detroit, and the white people who are ostensibly in power. But there's also this interesting gender divide in the book too, like what the men are getting up to, as opposed to what happens amongst the women who are either left to figure out work for themselves or trying to keep an eye on their husbands, their sons in their lives to try to make sure that everybody is kind of okay, to make sure like the mothering is happening. Can you talk a little bit about that divide too? Because I found that really fascinating, especially with Rosa as a character who's kind of an upstart.
Yeah, I have three main women characters. One of them is this young radical. She's a young Jewish radical. She's 19 when we meet her. She has a lot of different jobs because she's got to help make a living and pay the rent. But she's a member of the Communist Party at the beginning of it, and she's a little too interesting and asks too many questions for them to really trust her by the end of it. She's helping out the UAW when in its incipient days when they're just getting started, and always up for a march or an organizing drive or whatever. And then she gets a boyfriend who she meets running from the cops at a demonstration during a strike, and he's just a guy, and he's not that political. He's very into the union because that has to do with him, but he's kind of racist. This is like her first big romance. She's got that kind of problem. Another woman is Norma and Carrie, who are the wife and the daughter of Jim Rogan, who's my main character, who gets sent down to Brazil. And Henry Ford, who was very big on family, said, well, once you've got a roof over your head, you have to send for your family. And Norma has been somebody not thrilled about being in the Upper Peninsula and at this little model village that has 15 people in it, and their job is to cut down trees and saw them into boards. But then when she gets to the jungle, within the first year, her maid has been eaten by a crocodile, and she's not so sure she wants to be there. Whereas her daughter, Carrie, who's this kind of very rambunctious 10-year-old when she comes down, her life's ambition has been to own a monkey. And that's not going to happen in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But here she is in the jungle, and she hears the squealing of monkeys in the trees, and so it seems possible. And she's having the time of her life. She's learning how to speak Portuguese, which her parents aren't, because they're the people in charge, and they get interpreters to do that, badly usually, but interpreters to do that. And then there's a character, Molly, who, when we meet her, she's just the wife of a guy who's, on the production line. She's got 3 kids. One of her daughters has cerebral palsy, so that's extra work. And she's trying to keep that together. We get into the war. They've just barely survived the Depression. And she wants to be part of the war effort. She gets this new thing called a Social Security number and goes to work for Ford. And the next thing she knows, she's at Willow Run making B-24 bombers as a riveter.
We get to hang out with the Rosie the Riveters in your book as well, which is fun.
And she's meeting all these other women who are not like her. They're not the same, age or race or background or whatever. And of course, the first thing that she learns is the men's language is no fouler than the women's language. And so it's a real, growing up experience for her.
This is all happening in John Sayles' new book, Crucible. He'll be at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley tonight and at the North Adams Public Library tomorrow.
It seems in these 3 books that we've read of yours, there is this thread of the modernization of colonization. It happens in Jamie McGillivray. It absolutely happens in To Save the Man. And Fordlandia is like the crux and like the most obvious display of that, I feel. What is the appeal of trying to contextualize that colonization in a way that people can recognize it more around them in the things that are happening through your books?
I think it's one of those things that you often don't realize it's happening to you until it's inevitable. In a neighborhood thing, it might be, oh, geez, all of a sudden, there's a couple guys who've bought the apartment building and they're fixing it up. A couple white guys. And we're in a black neighborhood, and then, there's a little store or a restaurant or something. And pretty soon you can't afford your rent anymore because it's being colonized. And guess what? If you go back 25 years, your grandfather might have colonized that neighborhood in another direction. That's a very local version. But one of the things that is happening as nations form, as borders harden, and then more recently, as corporations get more power, you can't go anywhere without seeing these international corporations selling stuff to you. And there may be no other competition to it. you start to realize, oh, some of these corporations are bigger and have a bigger budget than nations. And maybe they have outsized power that we don't even know about. So decisions are being made not for the American people, but for, you name the corporation. So I think a novel or a story is a way to condense that and see people's lives actually being, even if they don't see it happening, the reader or the audience for a movie or a TV show can see it.
Before we let you go, John Sayles, we're going to talk a little bit about movies. Well, first of all, you had an excellent guest appearance on the Peacock television show Poker Face as a police officer. It was great to see you in the acting mode again. What, if anything, can you tell us about what you're working on movie-wise right now?
We've been trying to make a Western for way too long. The money has fallen apart at truly the last minute. Like the Friday before the actors were going to arrive twice.
Lord have mercy.
Once in New Mexico and once in southern Spain, where we were going to be shooting on Sergio Leone's old cowboy sets.
Nice.
We're going to do one more try. If it happens, it will probably happen in the Canary Islands, of all places, because, they have a big incentive down there and they've got some kind of rugged landscape that kind of fits the story. It's based on a novella that was written by a cowboy turned author in 1920 and appeared in the Saturday Evening Post. As many things like John Ford movies, many of those were originally stories in the Saturday Evening Post, called Paso por aquí, I Pass This Way. And, we're just going to make another try and try to shoot it in the spring and hope that we can raise some money. But that's movie making right now for independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
Is the actually making of the movie is the easy part.
It really, having witnessed this vicariously through our mutual friend Bob Kraskowski.
Yeah.
Oh my word, it is frustrating.
And yet we are still plagued with remakes that are not nearly as bad and don't need to be done.
That being said, you are two-time Oscar nominated. Any favorites in the Oscars this go around, John Sayles?
The movie that really stood out for me was Hamnet. And it was interesting. I've adapted novels, for people, and the director worked with the novelist to do the screenplay, and they did a wonderful job of adapting it. And it's not the same as the novel. It's been great to see that director. Her first movies were either documentaries or semi-documentary, working with new actors. I don't like to call them non-actors, but she has just kept developing, and it's about Shakespeare. So there's some theater in there, and she really nails it.
Oh, yeah.
Some wonderful performances in it, and it's very moving, but just technically, I really admired, this is real filmmaking, and this is a great adaptation of a book.
Mount Holyoke alumna.
Yep, I was going to
another
say.
local connection.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you would like an opportunity, there is a public screening to see a John Sayles film happening next month, March 26th, at my middle child's college, Clark University, where he is going for film studies. Lone Star will be screened, and John Sayles will be in conversation at Clark University on March 26th. He'll be at the Odyssey Bookshop in South Hadley tonight, and he'll be at the North Adams Public Library tomorrow. It's always a delight talking to you, John Sayles, and it's even better when we get a book to go along with it.
Yes, thank you. Well, I've got another one written, so it won't be next winter, but maybe a little further than that. I'll talk to you again.
Absolutely. I'm readying my brain for it now.
Desde que conozco.
And now time for Live Music Tuesday with Mtali Banda, who's playing De La Luz in Holyoke next week.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Genuine Culture LLC presents an inspiring evening of live music and cultural celebration featuring Mtali Banda and his band. Performance will take place at De La Luz Soundstage in Holyoke, closing out Black History Month next week with a soulful showcase of Black creativity, storytelling, and community connection.
The event aims to celebrate the cultural legacy of Black music while also engaging the local community in a shared piece of joy, identity, and reflection, highlighting an artist with deep regional ties and universal messages. The event fosters cultural appreciation, encourages intergenerational dialogue, and strengthens Holyoke's growing creative scene.
And with us today to bring some of that experience into our studios are singer and saxophonist Mtali Banda, guitarist Andy Sorensen, and Damany Gordon of Genuine Culture LLC. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Let's start out with a song.
Let's do it. running through the rain, seeing through the smoke, facing all my ghosts. I know how it feels when it's hard to make a way. But we rise today, ain't no easy way to get through the days when it's hard. We say, I'm gonna get by when the going gets rough. I'm gonna love life till I'm done growing up. And if I go down, then I go down swinging. I still smiling and my heart's still singing. I'm gonna get by when the going gets rough. I'm gonna love life till I'm done growing up. And if I go down, then I go down swinging. I still smiling and my heart's still singing.
So good. Mtali Banda with guitarist Andy Sorensen. Mtali Banda and his band playing at De La Luz Soundstage in Holyoke next week on February 28th.
How much of what is going to be in your program at De La Luz is connected to the work you were doing at UMass?
None of it. No.
Because you are a PhD student at UMass.
Yeah. No, I just feel like sometimes people ask this question hoping like it's going to give this meaty response, and sometimes like it's like, sure, like I think there's definitely a connection, but I think ultimately for me, like, and this separates from some people who do sort of the academics within the Black diaspora. So for me, like, I think anything that's Blackness is free terrain. And so, like, when I was comprising the set list for this, I wasn't actually thinking on a academic tip. I was more thinking on a like cultural tip, and how do I connect to this music?
Okay, let me rephrase then. Like, what's different about the history you're looking at in this program as opposed to the history that I've seen you perform before?
Real. I think in this program, so I'm challenging. I'm about to say some controversial things.
Just don't swear. We don't care. You
Yes.
can say as controversial as you want.
And I actually needed that reminder.
No problem.
Having talked to you off the air, I thought it wouldn't hurt.
Just a kid from the south side of Brockton, what you offer me. So I think the way this differs is more I'm just existing. And I think like that's something I like to challenge in these academic spaces where it's like we need to justify what this exists. How does this fit within the archives? How do we make this something? And for me, I just think Black is, right? So like the songs we're doing are the songs I culturally grew up on within Black culture. They're the songs that if I were to play in a room full of Black people, everyone, like, culturally, like, there's a nuance where you play certain records, Black people understand it. And that's who I'm speaking to in this show, right? I'm not speaking to, which will be a majority white crowd, and they might be coming in with what they think is Black music and what the Pioneer Valley has led them to believe is Black cultural music. But a lot of that isn't. A lot of that doesn't work at the cookout. A lot of that doesn't work in these Black spaces. And that's fine. But what I'm doing is I'm making a soundtrack that exists in the spaces I grew up in and the spaces that I belong. Now, a lot of the songs might not meet the ears of the people, and that's okay. Because I'm doing this for me.
Can you have a couple that you want to mention?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, like I said, like I'm covering everything. We're playing like Outkast, Daniel Caesar, like new age stuff. That like again, like if I were to play this in a room full of Black people, ages 25 to 40, they're gonna know what the records are, and they're gonna sing along to it. And I'm really excited to speak to that, and to speak to that cultural space, in a sense of like a cookout meets family reunion.
Word.
Well, speaking of Outkast, you have an Outkast shout out on your sweatshirt, Damany Gordon from Genuine Culture LLC, who's in the studio with us, who is helping to co-produce this event. Tell us about your vision in bringing this to De La Luz.
Yes, as you know, it's the last day of what we call Black History Month. But as we know, Black history is 365 days a year. It is American history, but I think it's important, especially it's the 100th year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
That Carter G. Wilson first put out Black History Week. Now in month, I think it's important to showcase, like Mtali was saying, these cultural nuances of Black music. And Black music, it's embedded in everything, and it flows through all of us. So I think it's important to showcase that, and it's going to be a wide range of different vibes in music.
It's a very good reminder that there is very little of American music, especially pop music, that is not in some way influenced by Black culture.
That's right.
It's almost all Black music, if
That's
not
right.
all Black music. And I was listening, Mtali, earlier to your Oneness project, which is reflecting overtly on a lot of the more recent history of Black music. And then you also have an incredible piece about homegoing and your ancestral homeland. Can you talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah, so I'm working on new music. I've been working on new music. I feel like it's this running joke.
Isn't everybody always working on new music?
At this point, though, I'm making Frank Ocean look timely. You know what I mean?
Are you making D'Angelo look timely?
Oh.
Maybe. Yeah, because he
every
definitely
10 years.
Yeah.
Every 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I might be approaching Rihanna. If that's the case, we might be going over 10.
Yeah.
No, but
for white people, think George R.R. Martin's books in Song of Ice and Fire /
That
Game
series
of
is
Thrones.
never going to. It's never going to
he's
be
never
finished.
gonna finish that.
it isn't, and I'm a little.
No, just come to
Me
terms.
Too.
I'm a big nerd, so we could go all day.
Yes, we could. Let's do it.
But I would say the music I'm making now. So there's a project that dropped, which is the Oneness Project, which I released in 2017. But as soon as I released that, it was like I was good. And there was a whole nother story that I was ready to tell. And that story is sort of my own coming of age story, even though Rites of Passage, the Oneness Project, felt like also a coming of age story, but it was a different story. It was Rites of Passage was about what did I need to do as an artist to get up to that point of like self-exploration. And then the homegoing music, which is about me going back to Malawi, is what happened after that. What happened after I went to Malawi? What did I learn to try and be that man I am? And I'm still trying to be that man. But a part of that was learning about my father and what he went through in Malawi, and learning what my family went through in Malawi, and how that was connected to the political history in Malawi, and then seeing how my life growing up was connected to that, right? Seeing the demons my father was running from, and that were chasing him, and how he sort of tried to avoid those demons, and then how did that impact me? How did that impact my sisters? How did that impact my mother? How did that impact so many different people? And it made me think about sort of these political moments, right? And you look at these dictators, and you look at these different things. Malawi, we had a dictator for 30 years, and you think about him and you say his name, but then what you don't know is how he impacted the family units of so many different people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just Malawi, though. You could make the same case for, my Dominican friends who are older, who grew up during Trujillo's time, right? You could make that same case for, South Africans who grew up in apartheid, and how that impacted their family units in very real ways. And you can make that case for every moment in political history. And so I wanted to tell that story. I wanted to tell a story that looks at something very big, but then tells it through a very small lens. And that's what homegoing is. Now it's called Black Boy Fairy Tales.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And I've been performing it. I haven't released the music from that yet. I do hope to do that very soon, but there's also another story I'm telling as well that needs to be told first before I can do that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we'll hear a little bit about that coming up. Let's take a quick little break here with Mtali Banda and Andy Sorensen playing guitar with him, as well as Damany Gordon from Genuine Culture LLC. Mtali going to be playing at De La Luz Soundstage in Holyoke next week.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
I would wait for you to come around my way.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. It's Live Music Tuesday. Next Saturday, the last day of Black History Month, February 28th, Mtali Banda and his band is coming to De La Luz Soundstage in Holyoke, and some of that band is here in the studio with us right now. Let's hear another song from Mtali Banda.
Now hold on a second, I need a minute. Please, God, forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready to tell my story. Now hold on a second, I need a minute. Please, God, forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready. I'm waking up and I just wanna be in a place where I can see all the joy, pain behind me. My soul is happy. Nights I'm laid up in your bed, days wish you didn't end. Some call it toxic, but we rocked it. Legs locked while we laying on the carpet. Cause who cares what they say, cause they never know the love that we felt. And I know that we can hold on like a melodies, make love over symphonies. Yeah. And what's good is meant to be, and what's bad may we never see. Now hold on like a melodies, make love over symphonies. And what's good is meant to be, and what's bad may we never see. Hold on, now hold on a second, I need a minute, please God forgive me. It's been a while, but I think I'm ready to tell my story. Now hold on a second, I need a minute, please God forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready. And ever since I left you, I ain't been the same. It's heavy on my mind and I can shake the waves. You hurt me cause I hurt you. Then I moved too, but you pulled me back. And I just wanna see the day and be the man that you can say I never let you down, baby. Yeah, even if I flew around, baby. Yeah, and when you laid them eyes on me, and then you did them things to me. You had my soul from the beginning, and I just need you here with me. Maybe we can just hold on like a melodies, make love over symphonies. And what's good is meant to be, and what's bad may we never see. Yeah. Now hold on like a melodies, make love over symphonies. Yeah. And what's good is meant to be, and what's bad may we never see. Hold on, yeah. Now hold on a second, I need a minute. Please God forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready to tell my story. Now hold on a second, I need a minute. Please God forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready. Hold on a second, I need a minute. Please God forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready to tell my story. Now hold on a second, I need a minute. Please God forgive me. And it's been a while, but I think I'm ready to tell my story.
That is Mtali Banda and Andy Sorensen on guitar there. Mtali Banda and his band playing at De La Luz Soundstage in Holyoke Saturday, February 28th. We've only got a minute left, and we had all this big plan about how you're going to play us out, and Phil over there is doing some great stuff trying to finagle this. But what is the story that you're telling? You told us the 2 stories that you were telling before with your Rite of Passage and your Black Boy Fairy Tales. What's the story you're telling next Saturday at De La Luz?
I think I'm just telling the story of why I do this music and why I play it and what I hope and what when I press play on my phone or Apple Music or Spotify, what am I looking at? Like, what am I looking for? And what am I searching for? And I think this is that time to explore the things that I love most about music, even if it's not always reflective in the music I make. And I'm honoring the people that I look up to.
I loved having the conversation off the air with you about how much Bon Iver is an influence on your music, and when you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's sitting right there.
Yep. Got questions about that the next time you're in the studio?
Yeah, we hope to have you back sometime soon, and we hope to have you back, Damany, because you got a big house thing happening next month too.
Next month.
Yep, we're gonna have some.
Save the date.
We'll talk about that next month.
March 28th.
Yep. And tomorrow on the show we have we'll head to Shelburne. We'll do a farm interview at Hager's Farm Market.
We're also going to hear about Sonny Jane's new project, Wild Wild East, which comes to the Drake.
And Emily Brewster, word nerd, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster. If you got a question, thefab413 at nepm.org. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith. Talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.